System of government at the time. In theory, everything goes through the king. If you think of the traditional feudal system, you've got the pyramid of power with the king at the top. He owns everything, the church gets some, the barons get some, and it goes down in the pyramid. So at the bottom, you've got the peasants with nothing. It was a little bit more complicated than that. At the top, you do have the king. He delegates power, and power is delegated back up to him. The king does not have total power though. He has to have certain things approved by Parliament or the council. In the case of Henry VI, with him being 9 months old when he was born, the council ruled for him at that time. Because of changes that had happened in a century or so before, Parliament did have a say. You think of things like Magna Carta, it gave barons power, and it meant that kings could be held to account and often were told that actually they couldn't do something. So what happened was that the barons held land from the king. In lieu of that, they controlled those lands, and they could have those lands taken back off them. Often a complex process, but in theory, if they behaved themselves, they kept the land, they got the wealth from the land, in return for which they governed the land. In terms of the harvest for heads and Kent, that typically would mean that if there was any kind of problem in the region, the baron or the magnate, that's the landowner, would be in charge of administering justice in that particular part of the world and collecting the taxes. There were also 2 or 3 appointed justices in every county. They held a king's commission, and their job was literally to act as justices of the peace in exactly the same way that a JP would now. So you've got at the top the king. He is advised by a council, much the same way that a prime minister is advised by a cabinet now. A lot of it has to go through them and has to be approved. Underneath that, you've got Parliament, and it works in very much the same way as it does now. It didn't meet as often, but it's got a Commons, which is elected by the gentry, by the yeomen. You've got the Lords, which is the lesser nobility. I mean, council's got between 12 and 20 at most. Underneath that, you've then got local administrations. So you've got the land handed out to the major magnates. They then separate it out to the lesser magnates, who then separate it out to the lords of the manor. But you've also got cities and towns that have their own charters. So, for example, the city of Hull had its own charter, hence the Kingston part of the name of Kingston upon Hull. King's Lynn, they are separate from that system. So you get what becomes known as bastard feudalism, whereby the traditional role, say just after the Norman conquest, of you hold the land and in return you've got to give so much service in military terms. By the 1450s, you held the land. Yes, you were expected to respond to a commission of array, but in general terms, your expectation wasn't necessarily military. It could be financial, economic. It could be in lieu of doing particular service for the king. So it's quite a complex system. It's not what people think the feudal system is. It's not what our system is. It's somewhere in between.